Hello and welcome to the Ski Racing Podcast Extra with me, Ed Drake. Tord Nilsson and I are back to discuss the slaloms for the men and the women over in Zagreb. So a quick weekend of racing in the rain, which was a real shame. But thankfully, no cancellations and we did get the races off. Tord, how are you?
I'm very good, Ed. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? We have, as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, gone into a full lockdown here in the UK. So myself and Ed have taken matters into our own hands, and we are going to analyse from our houses, and hopefully this will work. And it's a shame, obviously, but we've got to keep doing this and make sure we give the viewers what they want, right?
Exactly. And so should we kick straight off with the men's race over in a warm Zagreb?
Absolutely. You commentated this, obviously, on Eurosport. What was it like? It looked like a really, really long race, up mid-70s in gates, or turns, rather. What was it like?
It's a really tough slalom, made tougher by the fact that it was really warm. So we didn't really get freezing conditions. They didn't inject the race piste. It was all salted. They were hosing it down with water and then salting it to try and get a good race surface. Yeah, first run of today's race, the men's race, 75 turns, over a minute's worth of slalom racing. And the second run was slightly less turns, but slightly longer as there was more offset, which was 72 turns. So physical and mental challenges down there.
Totally. And your legs are going to be burning after that, aren't they?
Properly burning.
Really, well, and there were some really interesting results as well. Before we go to the podium, there was a trio of Austrians, and the one I want to talk about is Michael Mack coming in at fourth, but climbing 22 places, which is just excellent, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we've seen that quite a bit this season, the old second run charge, mostly because the snow conditions haven't been great. So it's meant that the guys that go early in that second run have better snow conditions, and therefore, like the guys that were quicker on the first run end up having rutted, bumpy conditions. So you do tend to get somebody charging in from the back. But to charge in, what was he, 26th on the first run into
26th, yeah.
Yeah, it was a mega run.
That's awesome. Anyway, moving on into the podium, we had Marco Schwartz, who took the third place, which was a good run, and it should be added, he was only 0.16 behind the eventual winner, so he was still really close. What was his run like? What worked for him? What didn't?
He was really calm. He's been struggling to find form off the back of his injury, which he picked up over a season ago. So last season he was talking comebacks and it was taking him a while to get back to form, had a couple of half decent results but missed the consistency, and all of a sudden now that consistency seems to be here. He's a very relaxed skier, not somebody that is on the edge of his seat, doesn't really make too many mistakes, which he didn't he capitalized on that today. Minimal mistakes on slalom skiing, which is so tight for the men at the moment.
Yeah, totally. And then you had one of my favourites, one of your favourite skiers, Manny Feller, coming in at second. I mean, I had to rewatch his run. He was wild. I loved it, and I loved every second of it.
He's changed up his style, and we've talked about it before on here, that he's lost the sort of crazy Manu stuff that he used to have a couple of seasons ago. And he'd managed to keep that under wraps the last couple of races. But that sort of snuck in on the second run. He really was pushing, really working hard. But the mistakes he did make, whereas before he'd make these massive mistakes and then blow out, this time he makes the mistakes and sort of catches them a bit sooner. And it just means that he was able to lose less time. And therefore now he leads the overall standings for the slalom tour.
Yeah, and I guess with the experience and everything and some extra coaching for him, that's where he's kind of made those changes. But he is still a wild, fun skier to watch, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then the winner, he, first World Cup slalom podium from Germany, Linus Strasser, fantastic skier.
Yeah, he skied really, really well. It's the first podium that Germany have had since 2017, since the win, for Germany in 2017. He was super emotional, as you would be, of your first classic slalom win. I think he's won it's either a city event or a parallel slalom event. I can't remember.
It's a parallel slalom, yeah.
Was it a parallel slalom? And so those are one of those things that you kind of, you take a World Cup victory, Of course you would, but it's not quite a slalom World Cup win. It's like winning a combined race, and then you'd rather win a classic downhill slalom Super G, any of the disciplines, rather than a combined sort of. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those where you're kind of
absolutely.
Like the real seal of approval is winning a classic event, and for him to win a slalom, and he didn't do it. It wasn't like it was luck. It wasn't conditions. I mean, he was in 7th, I think he was, after the first run and took the win, or 6th maybe. Can't remember exactly, but it wasn't like he'd gone early in the second run and therefore took advantage of the conditions. He did 2 really good runs, and it was brilliant to see. And another, we talk about it every week, Tord, another skier that is winning World Cups.
Yeah. It's great to see that another name, and changing it up. After all, and I know we've said it before, but just to reiterate again, after all the years of having Hirscher just smashing through everybody, and it was kind of an easy prediction league. You just put one name down. Now, I mean, I got it totally wrong with Kristoffersen, and it's great to see.
Yeah, it really is, and that's what's. And I think you're seeing that on the women's tour as well. We'll talk about that shortly. But I think you're seeing, which is only going to be good for the sport, that it's not just one athlete dominating or 2 athletes dominating. It's more so on the men's side, but there's a plethora of athletes that can come in and go, I'm going to win today.
Absolutely. Right. Let's find out how he did it.
Linus Strasser, the man of the moment. He was in 8th after the first run. He did not have the best conditions. He probably actually had one of the worst conditions up top here, and he picked up his first classic slalom win. He's taken one in a parallel slalom, but this is by far the biggest of his career. So loses a 10th up top, so he's had a couple of issues up there, but to only lose a 10th, having, being fighting against Michael Matt is no mean feat, considering Matt went down with only 4 people on course. So you could just see how dynamic he is. Just keep an eye on those feet. Working really hard. He gets pitched into the air on this steep section, but real commitment. You can see the force at which you can pick up these shoulders. Just take a look at the shoulders. They are driving down the hill. Even from this front-on angle, you can see how hard he's working to keep that pressure right over the front of the ski. And therefore, when he does get pitched into the air, it's not a wheelie motion. He's got good core strength. The shoulders are in a good enough position that he's able to then get the tips of the skis back onto the snow and get them biting and be in a position yet again where those shoulders are forward and they're able to influence the position on the skis with that shin pressure. So cut up conditions on this top, but by no means as tricky as the ladies. Lovely move out of that hairpin to make sure that he got into this banana nearly really cleanly. Manages to stay nice and high. We saw a couple of races getting pitched through the air and therefore cutting a lower line and not able to take as much direction into here. Strasser comes up and under. He's able to be right on this blue gate, which just means that he's able to take a bit more of a direction into that gate to then carry that extra little bit of speed off the back of this small road section. Lovely clean turns through there. He's lost another couple of tenths, but this was where he really set the motor into overdrive. Weaves his way yet again through the hairpin. Good execution on the exit. And I think this may be one of those turns that he wasn't planned to do it, but it actually meant that he carried a load of speed in. So he gets that pressure quite suddenly towards the end of the turn. You can see that the hip doesn't really move forward, which means a lot of that pressure coming towards the end of the turn, and he gets quite twisted. You can see the chest is facing way down this way rather than more down the foreline, which is here, and just means that those skis bite really hard underneath him, and he gets pinged into the air. But then the way that the pressure just bites on this ski here, and you can just see, goes from this really extended position, gets the edges there, they then bite instantly, and the skis just ping him straight away. There's no lateral there, which is why you get sort of all compressed, and it just accelerates him so quickly down the hill. So that was a recovery move that turned into, I think, the thing that gave him a load of speed across the flat. But with that move there, he's able to get right over the front. That core strength, able to get right up over the front, weave his way really cleanly through that verticale and carry loads of speed down onto this flat. Really clean again, arcing, beautiful turns, quick feet through the hairpins. And it's this little couple of breaths before this in run. He's made up nearly 3/10 there. Really quick skiing. Again, now onto the steep part, and he knows that it's rutted. He knows it's bumpy, and he knows that you can't win the race here, but you can throw it away. So he goes into stability mode. He goes into technique execution, double pole plant, more of an old school technique. But what that does do is really forces the hips to get up. Watch the body here. Watch how low the hip is here. Low hip. And he's working really hard to get that hip up and forward. And he's gone from being in this position here, where the hip was very low, and he was sort of skiing, if you would, like this with that hip. He goes from that to being right up high with that hip, really over the top of the ski, gives him loads of space to move that pressure forward, get that shin angling into the front of his boots, and get an absolutely monster turn done in the ruts and the bumps. Really clean, nice and early into the ruts. There's a bit of a heavy stomp on the edge, on the exit of that verticale, but he's working super hard to try and keep the contact. But the fact is that the ruts are significantly lower by the gate than the snow surface is between the gates. So you're having to work extra hard, just pinging his way down there. Core strength gets, compressed again, but looks for that hip extension, looks for the leg extension so he catches the snow as early as possible. But the hip, when he does hit the snow, when his ski starts to arc, that hip is up. At no point does he start the turn with a really low hip. And then these final few turns really weaves his way down. And that was a masterclass of tricky conditions. Well deserved of his first World Cup win.
So we move actually back in time now to the women's, still in Zagreb, still a very, very long course. And the weather was tough. It was kind of that rainy, sleety kind of weather, wasn't it, Ed? And what do you do in those conditions?
Battle your way through it. I don't know. It was pretty grim. It was proper raining. It wasn't sleet like it was for the men or even snow. It was a downpour of weather. So it was really, really tricky. It was even more salted for the girls, but it broke up a lot more quickly just due to the amount of rain that was constantly coming down. So the ladies did have the worst of the conditions over in Zagreb, but we still managed to get off a really good race. I think the top four were head and shoulders above the rest, which we'll come to now. But it was nevertheless, it was a tight set of races for that four.
Yeah, and it's interesting you said though the top four. That is kind of the same names, but they keep changing around. Who wins? Who gets on the podium? And who comes fourth? Fourth it was Schifrin this time. It could have been any of the others, I guess, because it is kind of their race to have, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, she was fourth, which was tough because she did a good first run. I think she was leading after the first run, and what we're seeing from Schifrin at the moment isn't the fact that she's not as good as she used to be. That's not the case. She's just not as consistent as she used to be. And I think the other ladies have become more consistent. So for her, who's struggling for form, or the same form as of old, it's about consistency. And she just can't quite get the sort of sections linking. She does 4 or 5 really good turns, then mixed with uncharacteristic errors that we don't expect to see from her. And I think that's where she's getting some undeserved criticism for the fact that, she's not as good as she used to be. And I don't think that's the case. I just think it's consistency for her, and that will come.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all have to remember she did take a whole year off, last year after her father's passing. So she will definitely be back, no doubt. Moving to the podium, we had Michelle Gissin in third, 0.42 behind the eventual winner, third podium of the season. It smells like consistency to me.
Yeah, and she's we talked again. We talked about it last time, but she's really stepped up and gone from being somebody that might stick up the odd result here or there, or in speed or whatever. And now she's one of the names that you think about can win almost any of the events. She's become really consistent. She's got a lovely touch on the ski. She's broken the duck of World Cup wins, and she's going to go from strength to strength, and she is somebody that can ski in all disciplines, and probably the most likely, along with Brianoni, to challenge for the overall.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. Second place, Katarina Linsberger came in 0.38 behind Vlhova.
No, that was after the first run. She finished 500th.
Oh, sorry.
500th was all it was.
500th.
500th.
I should really sort my notes out, shouldn't I?
Well, I'm glad you took notes, to be fair. It was a bit tighter. And I thought she had it. I thought she was going to pick up her first World Cup win. She was my pick for the weekend. And she's got a podium streak in World Cup slalom now. And I do think it's only a matter of time. Home snow next time out. Could it be her time? I'm very, very impressed with her. She's gone from being a good technical skier to somebody that's able to charge it when it matters and charge it when it counts, and put a bit of fire behind that good technique. So narrowly missing out on Vlhova's on the win, thanks to Vlhova.
Absolutely. Like you said, Vlhova took the win. She's now 128 points ahead of Gissin for the overall. A relatively safe bet that she's going to take it, I would personally say. I don't know if you agree with that, or you think that there's more to
it. Even at this stage in the season, that's quite a big lead. And Vlhova is very good at slalom, obviously, and very good at giant slalom, obviously. And she is going to pick up big points in every slalom and every GS. Her speed form is a bit hit and miss, but in reality, especially now, she probably doesn't even need to do too much speed racing to keep the points ticking over. It's going to take a run of some bad luck or some miscalculations and a few DNFs, I think, for the pressure to really be back on top of Vlhova. Schifrin already talked about in a press conference just before this race that she's not really going to be looking at skiing speed that much this season. If she does, it's only going to be in Super G, and it's sort of going to be geared around world champs. So I think for Vlhova, the overall is definitely there for the taking, and it's going to take some bad luck for her not to get her hands on it, even at this point in the season.
Absolutely. Right, let's have a look at how Vlhova took the win.
And here is Petra Vlhova's winning run. It was by the tightest of margins, but a win is a win. She didn't have the best of starts, just not quite settling into the challenge as she needed to. Getting pinged out at the end of the turn. You can see that she gets onto that outside ski really nice and early, but the pressure just comes on more than she expected and gets fired up and out and into the air. Great core strength to turn it around and get back on the outside ski carve, and lucky escape for her so early on in the challenge. She manages to only lose a few hundredths of a second through that, but then this is where it gets really steep, and this is where it gets really rutted. You can see how hard she's fighting. She is only fighting with the lady that went down in front of her, so Liensberg had very similar conditions. The key with these verticales, especially as coming off the steep, is all about this exit. You want to make sure that you get enough turn done underneath here so that when you come to here, all of the turn is done as early as you possibly can to make sure that you get good purchase on here. So you start thinking ahead quite a long way when it comes to these combinations, especially on exit onto a flatter section. But she manages to get away with that one, builds that advantage, and then this is Vlhova's bread and butter. Nice and aggressive across this flatter section. Lovely separation. Good bending up of the ski here. Lovely and smooth. Nice clean arc. Good, classic, good separation with that upper lower body. She's looking like a lady on a mission as she comes down. Carries some really good speed across the flat. Weaves her way nicely through that royal flush. The key to ski in these conditions is finding the rut really early. And yes, she's in midair here, but the minute she does find it, it's a clean arc. Same here. She gets pinged out, a little bit of an extension. She uses those long levers to find the arc nice and early and get those skis biting as soon as she possibly can. So she's built on that advantage. And this is where I think she switches up. She knows that she can charge this top section. And then she knows that this bottom half, this bottom third, is really steep, really bumpy, and it's really chunky with the snow. So I think she takes her foot off the gas a little bit and just concentrates on technique, which served her pretty well until she gets a little bit lower down. She's chucking them sideways. Unfortunately, those are intermediates are right in the wrong place. So she comes through that banana gate, looks to try and cut off a little bit of speed because it's a decent rut. And this is this little shelf. If you listen to the commentary I was doing with Eurosport, this is the shelf that I'm talking about. So the base of the rut is down here. And if you try and ski up in here, you end up pressurizing that inside ski too much. And that's where it easily can come a cropper for you. So she's just not taking any risks down here. She's trying to ski calm and clean. She tries to get up on that shelf, and you can see that gets away with it this time. Heavy pressure into the base of that rut. And that's when it starts to go wrong. Big pressure here, right at the end of the turn, gives her that acceleration, loses snow contact. So she's light through that initiation phase, then drops into that rut. All the pressure comes on at once again. So that's a cumulative effect from the previous turn to this turn. Gets pinged out into the air even more so. And then it's pure survival. Absolute pure survival into the really soft stuff. She even... At the top, she looked at pure calves to try and make sure that she was, anytime she got into issues, and you can see no separation across there, which is why that outside ski really struggles to bite, as you can expect. And then she even chucks them sideways for good measure to really make sure that she's in and stays in within the line. Another meter, another half a gate, and that would have been it. But she did enough to hold on, and a tactical, clever ski from Vlhova.
Cool, well that is it for this week. Ed, where are we heading to next time?
It's coming thick and fast yet again. Slalom January is upon us, but it's not just Slalom January now, it's everything January. So they're all got their skis on. The men race Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So it's GS Friday, GS Saturday and Slalom Sunday over in Adelboden, which is going to be mental. The piece is in really good condition.
Tired legs.
Yeah, the piece is in really good condition. The snow is hard at the moment. Let's pray for some good conditions. And whilst the women have a hectic schedule as well, they are racing in St Anton. They race downhill on Saturday, Super G on Sunday, and then night slalom on the 12th, which is Tuesday evening over in Flachau. So it's a busy period, and they're not going to get a break until after World Champs now. It's going to be brutal.
It's going to be the strong ones are going to survive, right?
Absolutely. Oh, all right then, Tord. Thanks very much. And that's all we've got time for. Until next time. Goodbye for now.